I'm joined today by the Director of Performance for the New York Knicks, blog writer, and now marathoner, Bar Malik. Bar, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Nat. It's Friday. It's nice outside. I'm feeling good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Friday. So, Bart, let's jump right into this. The whole purpose of today is to talk about this incredible journey that you took on 3 months ago now. And it starts with a really cool leadership initiative that you took on. So, can you tell us about who you are as an athlete, a little bit about your background, and then what brought you to the marathon?
So I've always been active, as a professional, and also just growing up, I always, competed in athletics. I've done several different, certifications where I had to compete. So I've always had like this competitive nature to just kind of, dig into the athlete in me, being surrounded by athletes my entire career. And that usually just manifested into weightlifting, some kettlebell certifications, like different, Spartan races, team building exercises. Nothing to the extreme. And I felt like, I was pretty confident because of just my build. I'm type 2, fast twitch. Every sport I ever played in as a kid was always, high power, high intensity basketball, baseball, football, track and field. Nothing in the endurance space. So it was something that I've never ever really thought about until recently. But I knew my strength was always as like more of an explosive, sprinting, repeatability type athlete because of how I'm built. So I've always been competitive and been engaged in those type of activities. So 3 months ago, with the team, we always talk about leadership and doing things to tap into your highest level of potential. And a lot of times as a coach, you kind of forget what that means. You just because you watch it so much, but you forget like what it means to actually leave everything out there on the court or whatever environment you're coaching in. So I felt like I needed to do something to just figure out what am I really made of. So I started thinking about a class. I started thinking about some individuals who I thought were pretty successful in their area, but not really tied into sports and performance, but more of like an entrepreneurial like mindset because they're kind of I think entrepreneurs are they're wired differently. So if you can find an entrepreneur who does stuff like ultra marathons, or other types of extreme racing, you probably can learn a thing or two from them because they're always thinking about ways to get to pursue excellence and then overcome setbacks. So the person I found out that I should probably look into was a guy named Jesse Isler who does a ton of different like ultra marathons. He lived with the Navy SEAL. He sold like these companies. He owns a part of an NBA basketball team. Amazing story. So I was like, you know what? I wonder if he has like a class or an email. I was going to just email this dude. And then I found out he had a class. And the first week, it was like, you need to pick a masogi. Like, you need to decide something that you can choose to do physically that would change your life. And as I thought about me as a person and what I would not ever want to do or pursue was a marathon. That was the only thing I could think about.
That's the one that's off the table.
Off the table, because I knew I would struggle through it. I never had an interest because I knew that wasn't my strength. So I picked a marathon. And it's been a game changer ever since I made that choice 3 months ago.
So you're the director of performance for the New York Knicks. A lot of people probably look at you from the outside in and go, this guy's already at the top of your game. But you're going, I need to level up even more. And so you start this class, this leadership course, and day one, week one, they say you need to pick, you said misogi, which can you, for the people out there, can you kind of define that for us?
It's like a Japanese term for like an annual ritual that you would do to, sharpen the saw in a sense. So choose something in the Japanese culture where they pick one event per year to just make them a better person through the experience. A lot of it's physical, sometimes it's mental, like, starting doing a class or doing a course. It's just something to stretch you into a different person by the time you finish and complete it.
Wow. And then, of course, for you being a strength athlete, that was actually a blog post that we had collaborated on that progress is a strength athlete's journey to the marathon, living in both worlds.
So it was like you said earlier, being in this environment with the team, I have to be on top of my game from a programming standpoint, how I articulate the days, how I have to manage and, measure outputs and get these athletes to be the best that they can be. Because you're pouring so much into that and into that person, there's 15 players and it's at a very, very high level for 10 months out of the year. you can, over time lose, some of your sharpness in the areas of your life that if you improved a little bit because you need to add a little more balance to it, you'll be better off as a coach. And I knew that, and I felt like, I wasn't organizing my life in a way that I felt like I could compete or do things at their level physically. And I just felt like it was time for me to just, step out of that and do something extreme to break everything up and have a better philosophy of what I believe in now that I've accomplished an endurance event. So that
Wow.
was the mindset going into it.
That goes right into the next thing. So when I kind of started with you to track along your progress, you had 13 weeks from the day you decided to sign up to the day you were going to run the race. And so you kind of spoke a little bit to it, but talk to me about prioritization. When people undertake a new physical goal, the number one thing you talked about was you have to learn how to fit it into your life.
Yeah, I didn't. I'll be honest with you, Nat. I had zero experience, so it wasn't like I made this decision and I had a plan. I had zero plan. I didn't know who I needed in my corner. I didn't know who I needed to reach out to. I didn't know what it would take physically, mentally, or anything else to get through a marathon. I thought I chose to do this. I'm gonna use the shoes that I have, keep my life exactly the same. Don't plan anything, and every so often I'm gonna go for a longer run, and hopefully within the next 90 days I'll accumulate enough mileage and get through the race. But that was my mindset going into it.
Mm.
Once I realized that this is something that I probably should pay very close attention to, I started thinking about, okay, like who are the key stakeholders in my life that probably should help me get through this. And you're one of the first people that reached out to me about the entire opportunity to blog it, and you're a dietitian. So I knew right away that I could bounce nutrition questions off of you because I know as an extreme eater, meaning like I fluctuate between intermittent fasting. Some days it's keto. It just depends on how I feel based on my travel schedule, different time zones. I knew that at the very least, I had you as an ally to reach out to keep me, accountable. And it was four people I wrote down. I said, you, obviously my girlfriend, because I spend as much time with her. And there was a trainer that I'm friends with. We're really good friends. And I would work out with him, 2 times, 3 times a week. And then it was the basketball team. So I had four individuals, that I felt like could support me and keep me accountable as I get through these transitions of trying to figure out how am I going to get through this without a plan, and then tap into these resources to help me develop a plan. So I knew I had to identify who are the most important people in my life that need to know about this to help me and also keep me accountable. But going into planning for the race, I had zero plan or experience.
Yeah, and that was really neat to kind of watch that evolution from this side of, okay, I'm going to go in. You're a very, very fit person. I think anyone would look at you and go, he can do whatever he wants to do. And there might have been some of that mentality going in, but there was a pretty significant turning point for you early on in your training when you realized, oh, I need to really adhere to a plan.
I was negligent. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that. I took the sport for granted. I had so much respect for runners now looking back, but early when I first started, I was negligent. I did not sleep the right way. My eating wasn't as consistent, and my training was still strength building and hypertrophy dominant. I did not transition over to endurance based stuff or even lighter loads and core strength because I didn't want to lose my size. I felt like I take pride in just my size. So
Sure.
I wasn't willing to compensate, that. But that blew up in my face. And I had to take a step back early in the process and just look at, okay, nutrition wise, how many calories am I burning? How many calories do I need? What micronutrients am I deficient in? What foods can help me, clean up these deficiencies so I can just be a better, more well-prepared person first? What are my hydration levels? What are the things that are limiting me to get the most out of me? And I had to get blood work done. And I took it very serious. I got some blood work done. They showed all my biomarkers. At that time period, I was, my hormones was all out of whack. I was suffering from like a borderline adrenal fatigue just because I was always just, pushing the throttle nonstop. I wasn't big into recovery. And it just blew up in my face. And I realized I had to, fix my nutrition, look at my blood work, look at my weaknesses as far as strength training, shift over from that, completely change my whole mindset about how I lift weights and train. getting running plans, so get different shoes, change everything. I had to change everything.
Yeah.
Set a foundation to go from, and that's what I had to focus on the 2 weeks I started training.
That was interesting to see looking back at the first couple of blogs when we always ask, like, we always have the section where we ask, what does your program look like this week? You do see a shift, and you can kind of notice when the shoes weren't working and the nutrition had to change. You can see that shift. So you had to really kind of get honest about your limiting factors, where you wanted to be, which was finishing this marathon, versus where you are and what you had to let go of or change in order to get there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned nutrition, and you do eat very healthy in general. One thing you had said to me recently is that, the UCAN products were something that were completely key to helping you get through this. Can you talk about how you use the powders, the bars, and the hydrate in your marathon journey?
Yeah, well, let me just go back to one of the other things you mentioned as far as like, facing your weaknesses. I had to reach out. So luckily with the network that UCAN has, I reached out to Mev and we talked, and that was like, because at some point you have to talk to someone who knows more than you in an area, and it takes a lot for someone to kind of admit that they don't know. But I was desperate because I literally could not walk, and everything just wasn't going as planned once I hit a certain amount of mileage. And he just said one thing that resonated the rest of the time was, what would you rather do? Would you rather get through the race and be 1 second over 4 hours and feel good and healthy? Or do you want to be negligent, train the wrong way, and not even be able to start the race? And that was just like, I want to run the race. Yeah, I want to run the race.
Well, so yeah, let's table the nutrition and talk about that first.
Yeah.
There's something big happened in the first month of your training.
Yeah.
You overreached. You went a little beyond. So tell everybody about what happened on, I think it was week 3 or week 4. You went a little over your mileage, and talk about that fallout. It was a bona fide injury. So let's start from that part.
Yeah, well, I remember vividly. I was so excited about I ran 7 miles, no issues. I remember like texting you as I'm finishing 7, 8, 10. Like, I remember it vividly. Strava sending you the different mileage. So we landed in Sacramento, and long day. We started in LA. We got to Sacramento around 10 o'clock. I was super excited to run. I was supposed to run 8 miles that day. I just finished 7. For whatever reason, I felt good, and I ran 13. And I remember I was happy I got it done, but I remember texting you like, I can't even eat. Like, I just destroyed everything I had, built up to that point because there was no glycogen. My liver was just shut down. My whole entire nervous system was just in stress mode because it was like, okay, we've never ran this long period at that pace. What are you doing? So anyway, I did that, recovered the next day. The next couple of days, I still tried to run at the same pace. I just scaled back the distance, but still, it's the same pace, the same speed, the same power output. And I strained a tendon in my foot. And that's when I realized, you know what? Because I couldn't walk for 10 days. Yeah. And I thought I had a stress fracture in my foot because I had the wrong shoes. I was wearing a size too small for running. I didn't know my mechanics. I didn't know I'm a pronator. I didn't know any of this stuff. And I didn't eat the right way. None of that stuff. I was taking UCAN just one time just before the run. I wasn't doing it in the break. I wasn't doing it earlier, and I wasn't doing anything at night. And that injury forced me to, really zone in on every area of every part of training because I could not walk or run for 2 weeks, and I thought I wasn't going to make it.
Right, and that's 2 weeks in a 13-week program. And I think injuries do, and there's also the issue that you didn't have the base built up. And we can't emphasize enough how much prior to taking on a marathon, you had, how much weekly mileage were you running? Was it even 3 miles per week?
No, before I started the Masogi, no, I wasn't running at all.
Right. So you really, it's also, you might get that kind of feeling like you're kind of riding this great, wave, but you weren't quite ready. You weren't quite acclimated to that load, and it took its toll. And that set you on like a 2 to 3 week course of really being intensive in your recovery. You had to do a lot of really cool recovery techniques like the Alter G, a lot of cycling. And that was a big step. And then I think 2 weeks later is when we got you connected through UCAN. You're talking about, you got to have a meeting of the minds with Meb Keflezighi. Yeah. Who better than to have like a sit down?
It was insane. He shipped me his own because we talked about like, one of the biggest struggles was that after I was done running, I wasn't eating enough calories, and he shipped me the chocolate powder that has 10 grams of protein in it.
Wow.
And he told me, after his runs, he always takes that one as opposed to just the normal one without the protein. And I started to adopt that habit. Because one of the biggest things, going back to one of the questions you asked earlier, was for me is like, I'm fat. I've been fat adapted for a long time, but I've never had to train longer than 2 hours. So I really didn't know how my body would respond to something over 2 hours, because I can get through a training session because I'm really not tapping into that much fat. I'm using, proteins and maybe some ketones, but for a running event, my body has to use fat. And I always was like super subconscious about carbohydrates because I know that if I eat enough, I just didn't feel well.
Mm.
I just felt like, we have these highs and lows where I just crave food. And I think it may have to go back to my genetics, because I have people in my family who are diabetic. And it just could just be like, a genetic trigger because of what you eat. So I've always been mindful of that. So I've always been kind of like, skeptical about ingesting too many carbohydrate. With UCAN, for me, in addition to obviously with the team, this was a big opportunity for me to see if this will work, because I've never taken as many carbohydrates in my body. And I also didn't want to feel like I was going to crash because of the highs and lows of the response, but I had zero. So it took a while for me to take Bev's advice. It wasn't until I got injured that I needed to see if this will work. And when I started adding an extra scoop with the protein after that run, I felt like I could just, go for hours and hours and hours. And that's what really, really changed um, a lot of things for me. And it doesn't irritate my gut or anything. So while I'm running, I didn't feel like it was heavy or that, there was like GI irritation. I just felt great. And, I think that a lot of it had to do with when I met with Med and his fueling strategy. We talked about hydration. I know I'm not a heavy sweater, but when I do sweat, my sodium potassium rate, I sweat out more potassium than sodium. And I was just drinking water. I didn't have any type of like hydration solution, so I started drinking UCAN, but I didn't have anything. Everything I've supplemented in addition to what I ate from my blood work was only the food recommended by the dietitian and an osteopathic doctor in LA, and it was you and UCAN. That's all I had. And the only thing I changed was the extra scoop after I run, and an extra scoop in the morning before I even start training and lifting, and that helped me immensely. Yeah.
That was amazing. And it's cool because I mean, Meb, I think the whole purpose to kind of put in the context is that you had kind of come to a point where you said, okay, the training program that I put together for myself is not working.
No.
You were coming off of that inflammation of the tendon.
Yes.
So we're like, let's connect you with Meb. And what I thought was so cool is one, giving you that nutrition advice, but on the other end, tell everybody, what'd you say?
The running.
Tell everybody what he said about like I thought the running breakdown of what he gave you, like kind of the well, you can break it down more like what he wanted you to do with like the runs. It was great advice.
I feel like I could be a running coach just off of what he told me to do, because that's how I got through it. I mean, before I just was anyway. He told me, because I was at first, I still use my heart rate because I felt like that helped me on my longer runs. But he was just like, you need to have a 3 day theme of running. Your first run earlier in the week is more of like a fartlek tempo type run. So, if you're running 8 miles, it's okay for every other mile to be faster than your previous mile.
Right. The fartlek is like the surge in speed.
Yeah. So it's like sprinting and jogging. You're still going to get 8 miles, but you're not running at a 7.5 pace the entire time. He asked me what was my goal pace. I said I want to run under 4. So he said, you know what? So you probably need to run between like an 8:30 and 8:45 mile. You don't have to run every mile at 8:45. You can run one at 9.5. The second one's at 8, and you just shift back and forth. And at the end of the 8 miles, you still average 8:45. I never thought of that. You're just constantly sprinting, going faster, going slower, but you're training your body to, use two different almost energy systems when it needs it, but also recover on the backside and reduce your risk of injury, because you're not running at an 8-minute mile pace the entire time. You're using 9 and 8 and going back and forth for 8 miles.
And you're not pounding for
I'm
longer.
not pounding, yeah. He told me, then you have a recovery run. So your longer distance run days, this is slower pace. You use your heart rate, go for your long runs. Don't focus so much on the speed. just get through the run, but it's a lower, slower run.
Was that hard for you?
That was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough. That was tough. But that's building up my aerobic pace, and I had to do that. So that was tough. And I would do that a lot of times, with no music. It'll be a podcast, so I won't my sensory won't be heightened. I just enjoy the run. And then the other part was just a shorter distance runs, like 400 meters or 800 meters, and do repeats, or do 5 mile repeats. Run 5 miles, rest 10 minutes, and do a set of 5 miles. So like the last day was either shorter sprint work or my 3 to 5 mile repeats over time, and that was the breakdown, and it saved my entire program. And then he mentioned the hills, like don't change the terrain. Like just if you're going for a longer run, you have to stay on flat ground. Don't try to do your longer runs on a hilly like surface. Try to keep all the variables the same, which was tough for me because I travel 80% of the time.
Yeah.
So before I met with him, and he told me these strategies and gave me this plan. It could have been a trail. It could have been a parking lot. It could have been a street. Anything. I just was trying to get my mileage in. I wasn't thinking about the terrain. And then with the shoes, I wear a size 8 and a half every day, and that's what size I run. I was running in an 8 and a half. Okay. He said we have a pinky length amount of space in the front of my shoe, so I bought 9 and a half, and I didn't know the front of my toes were bang. The shape, your toes were banging the front part of the shoe, and I didn't know that. So I got a bigger size shoe, and I just felt great. All the things he told me to change, I did that. And got some insoles, and I felt amazing just by him giving me that plan. It changed everything for me. I felt so confident going into everything else from that point because I had a plan.
Yeah, you had like a 1-hour masterclass with one of the best runners in the whole world.
Yeah, my friends were jealous. They were like, "Dude, what do you mean you're talking to Med?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can't hook me with Med because you're the best running coach in the world."
Whole world, yeah. And it doesn't hurt that he's like one of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Yeah, so nice, just so nice.
I want to talk about, you plugged into something that was really amazing to me to watch, is that what people should understand is that you were doing this in season. So you were on planes, trains, and automobiles, and you have a lot of other buckets that you have to fill in your life. So how did you get these runs in? What changes did you have to make in your daily structure? What sacrifices did you have to make? And how has that changed you moving forward?
It changed because you can get busy with just like, friends you don't see in a long time,
sure.
Doing activities just to fill up time that you have when you're on the road and during the season. And when the marathon, committing to run a marathon forced me to clean out a lot of stuff out of my life. So like I didn't go out, when I had days off, I wasn't going to these dinners or these meetings to meet with people that probably didn't support what I was trying to do. So I knew I had to probably cut off some of these relationships that didn't provide any value. So it forced me to right away cut off the activities that weren't bringing value into my life. Mm-hmm. Then, relationship-wise, which is a big part of my life, having someone invested in a big event like that, it almost brings you closer because they see the transformation that you have to go through for something that you probably can't do without their support. So it brings you closer. So I knew that doing something outside of my comfort zone and knowing I need to rely on my significant other for support, that's going to help me. So I invited her into the experience. And then as far as my work environment, instead of wasting time in the morning, whether it be lifting weights or just going for a walk, reading the newspaper with coffee, I actually really had a really disciplined morning routine that led into me doing some of the running and some of the other things, and I didn't waste time in the morning as well. So it's just like it forced me to organize my life into just 4 buckets that kept me disciplined. I felt like I had more freedom because I knew what time I was going to run. I knew if I wasn't running, who I was going to spend my time with. If I wasn't spending time with that person, I knew that I would be probably doing something else that's going to better help me for work because I have an hour to get something done. And then in the morning time, because I had to recover as quickly as possible because I still had to be a performance coach and take care of the entire team and manage the staff, I knew that it would force me to go to bed, get up super early, and actually do some personal development stuff for myself so that I can go in and attack my day in that way. So it forced me to organize my entire life. And it hasn't been, it's been changed ever since I started this marathon.
You've kept that, you've kept those, you've learned.
Yeah.
So by subtracting, you really added, right? You found more time. Now that you're not doing that, so what's changed in your life now that you've kind of kept those principles going?
Well, so through this time period, I've been, spending more time with the team because then I realized that okay, there's a lot more I could be doing with the downtime because when I didn't have it, I was cramming a ton of things in. Now I have the downtime because I'm not running. I can just focus on tasks for longer periods of time. Some of the things we want to do with our we're doing renovations this year for our training center.
Okay.
So a lot of research for different types of sports science devices we need. So now I'm able to spend, all these hours mentally just cranking out, looking at different companies and not feeling fatigued because I've been training for a marathon for so long. My mindset has already been trained to just endure like my focus for long periods of time. So just from a work standpoint, I've been able to get more involved in some of the bigger projects. And then throughout the experience, it's been insane. The guy's class I took in January, which is someone I've always wanted to meet, just a couple of weeks ago, because I ran a marathon, because I did the Masogi, because I've been like his A student, because I did this in 90 days, he invited me like to a conference with him, and now we're friends. And that's the one thing that like I wanted to get out of the class was I need to meet this guy, pick his brain. Now he's a mentor and a friend of me.
Wow.
So now I'm able. It's crazy, and I never thought that I would be. I can text him whenever I want to, and just ask him a question about something. I'm working on another project on the side, and he's an advisor for me. So like, just that experience has just changed that entire dynamic. And then just quality time with people that I really care about because I had to do that for 90 days. It strengthened those relationships.
Completely transformative.
Completely transformative.
Before I wanted to kind of go into the mentality aspect of it because really that is like the theme of your journey. But before that, one of the questions that rolled in that I don't want to lose is how. So what is it? So how much do you think you being a strength athlete and being so strong going into it, how much of that helped your recovery process?
It helped me a lot.
Okay.
It helped me a lot because it's funny because whenever we have these talks and in the city with UCAN that we go to these activations, I say the fact that I had a solid strength base helped me immensely because it just made my running a lot more efficient. And because I've lifted my entire life, my tendons and my joints have been under so many pounds of load that even though the running and the soreness that occurred from running, it was able to like filter it out quicker because my body's used to just dealing with lactic acid and stress because I've been lifting weights for so long.
You had a lot of integrity.
A lot of stress, and my muscles and my joints have already been exposed to stress. So my body doesn't go in shock when it's sore or hit. It just knows that, okay, I have to prepare it because you've been through worse lifting weights and you can get through this. So that my nervous system just knows that it could activate, certain things in my body to get me through. But no, if it wasn't for the strength, I probably wouldn't have been able to get under 4. Because during the marathon, I was dead, but I had leg strength, so I was able to push through, and we'll get to that. That was my leg strength and my strength going into it. I'm not that heavy. I'm only 155 pounds, so it's not like I was 200 pounds going into a run. I'm still pretty light. It helped my leg strength changed a lot for me because if I didn't have so much layers of muscle, I probably wouldn't have gotten under 4 hours.
Yeah, it gave you another gear. So going back to the mentality thing, this is another question from the audience that just came, and this is a great opening question for what went into your mentality. Was there ever a point during the training when you considered quitting?
The training sucked. I was talking about this morning I worked out, and this girl, she runs marathons, and she said, well, what did you think of the training? And I didn't know I thought she was gonna say, oh, I loved it, because she looked like she just loved to run. And I said, the training, I hated the training. Like, I remember I would text you like, hey, now I'm gonna run today. And I would dread it. I would just be like, I cannot run 19 miles. I just don't want to run 19 miles. But I always thought about like, what would I feel like at the finish line when I know I didn't give up on myself? Like, how would that make me feel? I would just visualize the finish line. And what made it easier for me was that through social media, I told 11,000 followers, which isn't a lot, but it's who's following you. it's the people who are following me. And it's millions of athletes. It's just whoever. All of my friends, people I don't know, people who DM me. I'm running the marathon. It's May 28th. I'm gonna get under 4 hours. I'm going to do it. Because I did that, I thought about that. Like, you know what? One, yes, this sucks. But what's worse? Not doing what you're going to do and deal with that part of yourself, or getting through this run and actually, being committed to yourself. So I always had to think about how much is this going to matter to me to commit to do this and keep myself accountable with my teeth by telling everyone around me and in social media that I was going to do this. The mentality is the biggest challenge. You do not want to do the training. It's just the training sucks, but it is the best experience of your life.
So that was really, so even if you did have these thoughts that were like, it never became a serious consideration for you to quit. So even if it was like you had like the devil on your shoulder saying, sleep in, the angel was much bigger, the proverbial angel, right? Just being like, think about the finish, think about that small death of quitting that it would cause you internally.
Yeah,
So was it ever really a serious consideration for you at any point in your training to stop?
I think it was when I hurt my foot.
Yeah.
And I really was like, why am I doing this? Like, what is it going to do for me? But I felt like in this class, as I started really focusing on the things that were important to me, I noticed just a shift. And I started becoming addicted to the shift in my life. Like, I felt like if I didn't run a marathon, if I did not commit to doing it for 90 days, if I just didn't have a masogi at all, I didn't do it at all, I think I'd still be stuck back in that mentality of just like, oh, I'll put it off or I'll put it off. It's like, no, because I did that, I got addicted to the process of getting myself past my limits every time I went past my limits. So that was bigger than the devil saying, don't do it at all. Just, sit in here and sleep in. Because there were a lot of days I wanted to sleep in. I mean, I went to the beach in LA and I wanted to just lay by the beach and just hang out and my girlfriend was with me. And I couldn't do it. I had to go for a run. I knew after that run, it was 19 miles. I would not be able to enjoy the night because I would be super sore. But I had to think about how much does this really matter to me? I told everybody I was doing this race.
Yeah, for sure. And that's
When we get to the race, I'm gonna tell you how unbelievable the support was because, and I think you're a part of it. But I want to talk to you about how I was able to get through like the last 4 miles and looking at my phone and seeing 20 messages. But we'll get to that later. But that's what it was all worth it.
That's a really good point. I mean, you see, especially like reviewing the weekly blog posts, shift seems to happen like that always darkest before the dawn moment. Like once you realize, like once you kind of took that first step after the foot injury and you said, okay, every mile I go longer, every run, it still isn't hurting. It still isn't hurting. And that seemed to really build on that confidence for you.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that that was a good mentality turning point for you where you're like, okay, we're in this once you came back from your injury?
Yeah, because when I first got hurt, I mean, I had all these down. My old self was starting to come back. Like, just like, man,
Yeah.
you can't do this. And I had coworkers, discouraging me, like, hey, man, just, don't do it. Maybe you should start off with like a 10K. Just bad advice. And I started to get into my own head. And I remember like just going back to just like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not good enough kind of mentality that we all have about something in their life. But leading up to that, I wasn't having those thoughts. So I wanted to just be that person all the time. So getting hurt, it forced me to either feed into that person that I used to be with things that got super, super tough for me, or, there's a purpose for this. There's a reason for this. Own it and try to figure out the other areas of your life in these next 2 weeks that you can kind of, button up and become more disciplined in and see what happens. And I did that. And once I started to do that and be consistent with doing that, I felt like Superman because it's like, no, look, I'm sleeping this many hours, I'm eating this way, I'm showing up at work, I'm feeling great. Once I start running, it just snowballed from there, and I love that confident person. So I became addicted to that shift. But I could have went either way. I could have just said I'm not going to do this because I wasn't on social media at this time. I was off. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to just hang it up. It wasn't meant to be, and I'll just tell people I'm gonna do it next year. But I had to really, really think about, what was my old way of thinking, and where do I want my confidence and who I am to be if I can just overcome this injury. And that's what all I thought about. Yeah.
Your mentality shift was a choice. It's that great saying. You either get to be the victim or the victor. You get to be better or better. You were better. You were the victor.
Yes.
And that was, it almost seemed like a light switch.
Yeah.
So that was really neat from the mentality perspective. One of the things that, right, I want to get into the race now, and like we'll go through that. But before that, one of my favorite things about this journey on my end, watching it, and I am not running a marathon. You went to, I think, a conference in Chicago for work, and there was a few other folks that I know that were there, and I think they had known that you were running the marathon, or maybe they didn't, and they were like, "Hey, Bar Malik's like here at the conference. He's sitting down because he says he just ran 21 miles."
But that's and that's when I was in this confidence mode. It was like,
Yeah.
It was just like I can't even explain just like my mentality to it. But I remember we had a dinner, and I've been busy the entire day. But
Yeah.
at this point, I'm already like I'm telling myself I'm a marathoner. Like at this point, I'm like I'm a marathoner, and like with strength coaches, it's like a badge of honor now for me because it's like we're all meatheads.
Yep.
But not Bar, but not Bar. Like he ran a marathon. So for me, I felt like, all right, I already got a leg up because you guys don't run at all. You just lift weights. And I actually have a conversation started because I actually ran a marathon, and everyone runs. Everyone's a runner at some point in their lives. So anyway, it was 7 o'clock. We had a dinner. We sponsored a dinner for all of our our platinum sponsors, so the people who spend a lot of money to get in front of our coaches to talk at a conference. And it was 7 o'clock. It was supposed to be from 8 to 10. I said I'm going to run 20 miles today, and it was cold. It was raining, but I already had committed to it. And I went down by the river in Chicago and ran for 2 hours. Got to the dinner late, but I could not walk. I felt so good about staying committed to the plan when I could have just went to the party, had a glass of wine, woke up the next day, not got my training in, and would have felt like crap coming back home knowing I didn't stay committed to what I've been training up to because I got sucked into peer pressure. So no, I did it. I felt great. It was 20. That was my longest run. It was 22 miles.
That's right.
My last run before the marathon.
That's what's amazing to me in all this. Again, it was hysterical to get texts from people I know. They're like, "Hey, so Bart just is here at this conference at my event, and he's sitting down because he ran all this." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds about on brand for him. Nothing's in this guy's way." And what's amazing is that it was your longest run was in the middle of a work conference, and everyone who's been to a conference knows how hectic this can be, and you made it happen anyway. And then the longest distance that you've ever run so far, which is probably not the last time you run really far, is 26.2. So May 20. What day was that?
28th.
28th, the Oh Boy Marathon. Talk me through your fueling strategy. Talk me through the run, and just let's go through it.
Well, let me just go back. So I didn't have this mentality before I started. So to the viewers, this was when you're training for something that's tough. You gain that. So I didn't come into this. So that's why I suggest everyone do something hard and get through it because the mentality would just shift. And you just become like almost like a confident person in different areas. So like the whole Chicago thing, and running at that conference. Last year I wouldn't have done it, but this year because I committed to it, I was able to do it when it was such a hectic time because that mattered more to me. So, anyways, going up to the run, I was super nervous. I mean, I've done all this running, and I remember I took that run was a Saturday, that was a Friday, 22 miles on Friday. I did not run at all Sunday, Monday, because I was super sore. Tuesday I got sick.
Oof.
I felt like crap. And I freaked out like, man, I feel like crap. I had caught a cold. And then I ran for a friend of mine for a business at a conference. I ran 17 miles on Wednesday. And I shut it down. I said, okay, that's it for the week. I feel okay enough to get through it. I have 0 injuries. I have a little bit of a head cold, but physically I can get through this. So leading up to the race, the night before the race, I had vegan pasta, UCAN, some tea with MCT oil, and just tons and tons and tons of water. Which that's the most calories I've ever had before a run day. I've never had that big of a meal at night, but I knew I would need it because I never ran that long with that much adrenaline. So I said it's better for me to experiment. I already had thought like, okay, I'm gonna use this pasta, which is vegan pasta, lentil pasta, and I'm gonna have UCAN, and I think I had porridge, UCAN porridge, and I'm just hydrated.
What's the UCAN porridge? How do you make that?
So it's chia seeds, UCAN, it's MCT oil, and you mix it all together with some coconut like chips, and you eat it cold, and you mix it all around. It's like a smoothie almost.
It was like a protein. You have
Like, yeah, like a
carbs in
smoothie.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had that at night to kind of keep my stomach full. Woke up the next day. My plan was what I packed. Thank God Peter was there.
Peter Kaufman is COO of this company, but we'll get into that.
What I packed was like a 2 liters of essential water. I had 2 packs of UCAN hydrate, and I had some Pro Bar like chews, and that was it. And I had a bulletproof coffee with like butter and MCT oil because I always had that in the morning anyways. And that was it. Completely underestimated how much I would need going into this race. I'm like, oh, it can't be that bad. I ate last night a lot of food. I'll just need this and I should be fine. So Peter shows up with like super starch cookies, super starch like balls, all this UCAN, a box of UCAN hydrate. He had everything. And he's like calling me literally at the start line because he was running late. And he's like, what do you need? I was like, Peter, I'm fine. I had this and I'm fine. I don't need anything. So I was nervous. I didn't want to have anything anyway. So that was my strategy leading up to the race. I didn't take anything from him yet. I thought I had enough energy and I was okay.
You thought you had enough from like the night before.
The night before, and then a little bit in the morning. I had a banana right before I ran.
Oh, but you didn't do any super starch beforehand?
Sorry. Yeah, UCAN in the morning. And
okay.
I had MCT, had a bulletproof coffee, so ghee, MCT oil, a UCAN hydrate, and a banana. That was it. And that was like an hour and a half. The race was at 7. That was like at 5:30 because we drove up there. We didn't stay overnight. So I had that in the car as I'm driving up to the race.
Wow.
And I've never had UCAN and a banana for my longer runs anyway. So I thought that
was the first.
First.
Yeah.
That was the first. So I felt okay. And so I packed minimally before going into this race. I didn't think I needed that much stuff. So anyway, I get to the start line. Peter's calling me, hey, what do you need? I'm like, oh, this is fine. I just need, what I have. And he said, well, I'm going to just sit this out here because you're going to need some fuel. So you're going to need, to replenish, everything you lose throughout the course of the race. And it was hot.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I started the race, and am I going into the race now, or are you asking a question? Or how should I just?
Oh no, I think it was hilly too. You had mentioned it was hot.
Yeah, it was, and it was hill. I didn't train on hills. Everything I ran was flat.
Yeah.
I just knew it was a 2-mile loop, but I didn't know there was 2 hills within every loop. I mean, steep hills. It's tough.
Yeah.
So about mile 8, he's giving me like a half of a UCAN packet, and I'm guzzling it down. I feel fine. Mile 13, same UCAN hydrate, but no pack, just UCAN, no bars, just UCAN hydrate. That's it. And then once like mile 16 hit, I was just like, I need some fuel. So he made me a fuel thing of UCAN. I drank that, so I spent about 2 or 3 minutes, refueling with him, and I had one of his cookies, and I felt fine. I didn't have anything else until mile 22, and that is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life when I hit mile 22.
What happened at mile 22?
It was like, I can't even explain the feeling. It's funny now because I tell people I want to go back to mile 22 because I felt like I want to go back because I felt like I met like I met myself like, okay, what are you going to do now? Like I have big speakers on. I didn't even hear the music. I could barely even see. So I get to mile 22. I take my headphones off. I'm like, guys, I got 30 minutes left. It's 3:30. I got 30 minutes left to get before these 4 miles. I'm done. I'm done. So they're like, no, you can do this. You can do this. So Peter gave me like another UCAN and some UCAN hydrate. And I had some Pro Bar, like little gummies. And I just ate everything. I said, just give me everything. Just give it all to me. And I don't know how I got through the last 4 miles because my body was not keeping up with how fast I thought I could run. But I pick up my phone to change the song because I had Do Not Disturb on my phone. And I had all these messages like, you can do it. I know you got it. Let's go. And I just got pumped. And it was like all these messages. I didn't see anything during the race. I didn't have my phone. I didn't look at my phone. And it was all these messages. You can do it. Can't wait to see you kill it. well, it was just like people I don't even talk to just sending me like all types of messages. And I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. So I'm getting through it and I'm dead. So I remember my girlfriend telling me it was like 3:53 and she didn't see me, or 3:52. And I mean, I was going probably a 10-mile-per-hour pace at this time. I just had nothing left. And I remember getting around this tree and it's like 3:53 on the clock and she saw me. And she was like, I can't believe you got through this race, because at that minute, at mile 22, I was like out of my mind. I never felt that before. Everything just tapped out. Everything tapped out. I couldn't even walk. After I got done, I could barely walk to get my medal. My legs were just destroyed.
Wow. Take me through the moments when you crossed the finish line. It's 13 weeks. You were a different person 13.
Oh my God.
What's that like for you?
I was just so proud of, doing something that I said I was going to do that was just so extreme. And a marathon is hard. And, to set a time like that without any running experience was kind of reckless. And I knew it was reckless. But when I saw the finish line and saw the time, I was just like, man, I can do anything if I just if I can just do anything I want to do, if I just commit everything I have to it and just set up my life to actually do it, and surround myself with people that believe in me to get it done. I felt so elated. And I knew from that moment on that we can do whatever we want if we just really become obsessive with getting through it and have the right support. I just felt like tears of joy. It just was like, just so happy to get through this.
Wow.
It's so
That's what an incredible story. And I feel like I need to go on a run right now. I'm like so amped up from just hearing your story.
Man, I'm telling you, and my girlfriend was there, and she didn't see my training, so she never see me train. She would just see me come in the house and can't walk.
Right,
And she
right.
would be like, "Babe, do you really have to do this? Like, why? Like, why are you doing this?" Because I'm older than her. She's like, "Well, you can't even walk." She's like, "Why are you doing this?"
And you're like, it's a whole thing.
Once she saw like the race day and she saw like my bib, she got serious. Like she's taking videos. She's seeing like this is really serious. But at mile 22, like the nurturing part came out because she's never seen me like just like I was broken down.
Yeah.
And she's like, "You can do it. Are you going to be able to do this?" She's talking just lightly. Are you going to be able to do this?
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to do this. And like got to the finish line. She just hugged me and was like, I can't believe you did that, because she was about to call me. She thought I was stuck because it was 3:52. She thought like maybe it just was stuck because I was like delirious at when I stopped to talk to them. Like, I can't explain the experience. The other day I said I want to go back to mile 22 because I just want to feel that again. But
Wow. Yeah, I like the way you said it. Like you met yourself.
I met
And
myself. I never felt that. I never felt like that in my life.
wow.
I never felt like that in my life.
What was your total finish time? What was your official finish time?
3:53:54.
Wow. Under four.
Under four. And
Under
it was
four.
like, I mean, it was like, honestly, it was like the universe just carried me to the finish line. Because it
Yeah.
was 3:30. I had 4 miles to go, which means I gotta be under 8 to get over 4. And I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I gotta do this. So the
Yeah.
first 2 miles, I think the text messages probably got me through it. But the last two, I mean, I was like probably 11 miles. I mean, I couldn't even move my legs. Like up this hill, I almost had to speed walk. I couldn't even get up the hill. And I'm looking at my phone like, okay, it's 3:56. My phone was maybe a little bit faster than the official time, but I'm like, I got 4 minutes left. How am I gonna make this? I didn't know what the real time was. And I just got through it. I don't know how I got through that.
You were stronger than you knew.
Stronger than I knew.
Wow. So I do have an audience question. Knowing what you know now after having your marathon fueling, I'm not going to say fiasco, but maybe it was like it was a misstep. How would you fuel yourself? Like, what would your like fueling strategy be now going into like your next marathon?
First of all, you have to have a plan. Like
Yeah.
you have to have a plan, and I would invest and spend the money in seeking out a dietitian or nutritionist, someone like you, to maybe talk about what their daily habits of eating, is, and what's the difference between like simple carbohydrate, complex carbohydrate. What type of fats can I use? What type of what are the biomarkers of things that are important to me that I want to maybe limit so that I can get through and train properly. I think you know uh, you got to consume calories, and you have to have calories. You can't have a carbohydrate restricted diet. but I think you just have to choose the right carbohydrates to allow your body to use more fats when it needs it, and then also carbohydrate when you want to pick your pace up. And I think, you just have to really get your nutrition organized in a way that there's a plan in the morning, and there's a training plan. So pre-training, how many calories you should have before you go on your longer runs. If you are doing strength training within that day, what should you have after the strength training? And then at night, you should be eating for recovery. So lean meats, good foods, good, lots of veggies, a lot of, different types of pastas, whole grain, just an assortment of foods that can support the training because your body naturally will be inflamed and you have to eat to support that. I think, you have to just have a plan and adopt habits from people who are professional in that space to help you and not, burn out or crash because you don't have the right fueling strategies early on because it could be debilitating. Some people don't even bounce back from hamstring strains.
That's true.
Or calf strains. They don't bounce back. And I think, my approach of eating foods the right way when I was injured helped the recovery. And if it can help me heal from an injury, it can definitely help me when I'm not injured. And that was the biggest thing. His takeaway was eat the foods that can help fight inflammation. Eat the right carbohydrates that don't have you spiking up and down all day to keep your energy level balanced. And at nighttime, eat so your body can repair itself when it's sleeping, which is the most important period of your training.
Prioritize recovery, and that means recovery in your sleep, in your nutrition,
everything. Yeah.
You've been using UCAN as a strength athlete, and now as an endurance athlete, you've used it as well. Like, what do you like about UCAN in general? Like, what are some things you really like about it?
One, the taste. Like, just I'm a taste person. That's why I eat a lot of different foods. Just the taste of it. It's very smooth on my palate. It's light, and I just enjoy the taste. But the second thing is just I feel like I can just go for longer periods of time. I don't take a pre-workout supplement. I don't take caffeine, creatine, nothing like that. Beta alanine. I don't take any of that stuff because I don't like the flushing feeling of the beta alanine. I drink enough coffee in the morning, so I don't need to take it before I train. I just like the energy I just feel from UCAN. I just feel stable. I just feel like I can just go all the time.
Yeah, it kind of takes the stress out of nutrition. And then, you can, like you said, towards the end, you might have been relying a little bit more on the faster carbs towards the very end. And that's the time to use it, right? Be smart about your carbs no matter what. There's a great comment from Christopher who's watching. He says, you're an inspiration. He's run 3 marathons and also hit a wall each time around mile 22 or 23. It's so easy not to run when he works 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So thanks, Christopher. Yeah, it's real.
I tell people all the time you should run a marathon just for mile 22, just to see what happens. I told you the other day that I said, now you should run just to get to mile 22, and just talk to yourself. Just to do it, and I just think it matters. But with UCAN, even though it was an experiment, the reason I even adopted it is because we use it with the team. So I know that like in athletics, as an intermittent sport, basketball, it's highly anaerobic with an aerobic component to it. But we use it, and I know that if professional athletes can get through 48 minutes running, 3.5 miles intermittently with sprinting in between, it probably can do the same thing for me at a longer distance because I've seen it used effectively with high-level athletes, Super Bowl champions, Olympians, all-stars. So I was already sold on what it could do.
Right.
I just never experimented with such a longer event, and it solved all my problems. So I didn't have to people buy so many different supplements to do certain things, and I just felt like UCAN for me was just one thing I needed to just focus on, and it helped me. It simplified my entire process.
Yeah, so, you really didn't change much because you're already
eating much
meal. Yeah. Just the UCAN, which is, I think, a great point. It's so versatile, like whether you're lifting weights or you're transitioning from a strength athlete to a marathoner. I mean, all you need to do is change the how much you're taking.
The dosage. Yeah, that's it. So
yeah. So Bari, just to kind of tie a bow on this, any closing thoughts or any kind of closing questions from the audience?
Are they asking questions?
Your closing thoughts first, Bar. Yeah.
Are they asking questions or am I asking questions?
No, I wanted to get some closing thoughts just from you, like of your whole experience. Like, what are some of your biggest takeaways?
That we have a lot more potential than we think we have, both mentally and physically. I think the human body is exceptional and phenomenal, and it will put out what you put in it,
Mm.
whatever that means in your life. And I just think that every year we should immerse ourselves into different endeavors within your life that about personally, and just see what's on the other side of that. Because I feel like you know we suffer from self limiting beliefs, and we have fears. This is who we are. As a society. We grow up as adults saying we can't do certain things because of our age, or because we have certain things preventing us from doing it. Just get rid of all that stuff, and really believe in yourself that you can do it. And you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish if you just give yourself a timeline to get it done, organize your life to complete that, and fully commit to doing it. And that's when you overcome fear. And it's a whole different world once you overcome your fears.
Wow. So one of the last questions here from the audience: what's next?
Um, a couple of things. Ultra marathon. So I'm gonna do an ultra September. Actually, September 5th
Wow.
for charity. It's 32 miles. Not it's the smaller one. And it's me and a couple of friends are going to raise some funds for Kenya. But it's the hardest ultra marathon in New York City. And it's a 6 hour limit. I think I ran a marathon in 4 hours, so I could probably compete in 6. But it's all hills. It's in the forest. So
Wow.
That's my next challenge. So I got a few months to plan for that.
Yeah, actually that leads into like the one more, and I'll take this last question here, is that now that you've done all of this running, how is that going to change your workouts moving forward? Will you stay strength? Will you do more endurance? What does that look like for you?
It's funny you asked that because I actually cut back on the strength. Like I used to be a guy that took pride in deadlifting, 300 pounds, bench pressing. I don't even have an interest in it anymore. Like I much rather go with lighter volume and keep my running base. I run 3 times a week. I just don't run. I'm not training for a marathon, but I probably run about 7 to 10 miles, and it's easy. And I don't want to lose that. I feel like my body looks better. I feel better, and it helped my strength because now I have more flexibility. I have a bigger aerobic base. Like the cells of my muscles are able to deliver oxygen a lot more efficiently. So my lifting is easier because I'm not going as heavy. So I'm never going to be this guy in the gym that's trying to load up 400 pounds and just crush my joints and my limbs and just crash into this adrenal fatigue mode, because that's where I was going. Had I not adopted a different way of training, I probably would have had, chronic fatigue because my hormones would have been so out of whack. And I don't ever want to get back to that phase. So I'm just going to be a hybrid. I'll run 3 times a week. I have one heavy lifting day, and the rest of the days I just do a lot of core work and body work, body weight stuff. So it's changed completely. I take pride in that now. I used to take pride in lifting the most weights. I don't even care. It's just I have to keep my running because it makes me feel healthier.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah, it's so, and actually I have another one. For how, this is a great question, talking about you being a athlete. How do you train to prevent how do you train to prevent joint injuries? I think it's a great question. Maybe the overarching question is, what can we do from a strength perspective to help maybe prevent or offset some injuries from running?
Yeah, I think a lot of core strength. So a lot of exercises that force you to utilize the posterior chain, which is your glutes, your lower abdominals. So a ton of planks, a ton of body saws. Not a whole lot of crunches because it's bad for your back, but I really focused a lot on my core work, because the core, when you're running, you're using your arms and your legs. There's still a lot of energy that's being you know filtered and transduced through the core up through the arms, so you can keep maintaining your speed and your lean. And I think you have to have enough strength inside that local area to just dissipate the energy equally. So a lot of planks, bridging, mini bands, clamshells, farmers carries, different types of loaded walks first. And then once you tighten your core up, work your way out. So single leg squats, not a whole lot of body, a lot of weight. So like a weighted vest, a TRX strap, a lot of hip extension on a bench. So your back's on the bench, your hips are off, you're going up and down. It can be loaded or unloaded, and a lot of different body rows. So rows with the TRX, dumbbell row, basic strength training exercise, because as you become more efficient and you are able to apply more force into the ground, your body, the ground is producing more force than that. So if you're running at 36,000 steps and your pace is an 8 minute mile, I mean that's 4 times your body weight. The ground's gonna give you 4.5 to 6. So that energy has to go somewhere. And that's why people have these hamstring injuries, these feet, and ankle strains, and sometimes even their low back or their knee tendon. It's because the leg strength isn't able to support the power that the ground's giving back. So you have to adopt some type of philosophy. And if I had to coach an athlete to run a marathon, it would be a lot of core endurance and supplemented with single leg squats and body weight hip extension exercises. Only 30 minutes twice a week. Your running dominates it, but you're training to prevent injury by doing these exercises. 30 minutes a day, twice a week. And you have to do a ton of foam rolling and stretching before and after.
Nice. Bar, we're at the hour. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Nat.